here not representing my employer, Freeport McMahon, or the companies of many of my colleagues from around the mining district who are here in the audience. I'm here strictly representing a process. I'm not even representing my own opinion about that process. What I want to do tonight is convey what I know or think I've learned over almost 40 years in this business about the process, how to get through the process, what is required of you. So when you hear about the forest planning process and the middle segment, you have a little bit of understanding of what that all means. So the first trick I have is to figure out how to run this thing. Can I just do it from here? We'll try it. There you go. How the process works, that's what I was just talking about. So a prospector, today, typically they're going to be aerial. They're going to fly over, they're going to find a geophysical anomaly that is interesting. They're going to swoop in and locate some mining claims because they believe chances are pretty good. There's a valuable mineral deposit in there. It may not be economic at this point in time, but certainly something that companies and any private individuals like to look at. So they'll locate a mining claim. What do you have to do to locate a mining claim? It has to be, the area has to be open to location under the 1872 General Mining Law. A lot of country around here is not, which is something that probably would surprise some folks. Once you've located that claim, Therese, to your question, it's filed with the Bureau of Land Management down in Phoenix. They administer the paper trail to that claim and judge, in fact, its validity in cooperation or conjunction with the Forest Service. If you want to get on the ground, which most folks want to do, and develop the claim, then you must submit a notice of intent to the Forest Service that you're going to have a surface disturbance. And it is the magnitude of that surface disturbance that is going to pretty much determine going forward what this process is all about. If the disturbance is significant, you're going to be required to file what I call a POO, a Plan of Operations. Brad, sorry about that. Brad, he referenced Title 36, Code of Federal Regulations, subpart 228. That's where you go to find the recipe for filing the Plan of Operation. It tells you what you have to put in there, who, what, where, when, how, maybe why, in quite a lot of detail. Once that's been done, a couple things are going to happen. Usually at the district ranger level, they're going to get out on the ground and review that very thoroughly. They have to, should understand the fact that these people are screened, or they are screened, but they're trained scientists, they're engineers, they're very capable of getting out on the ground and understanding the merit of your proposal. All operations are going to have to be bonded with a surety bond, and that's to ensure that the performance standards through the life of your project are adhered to, including reclamation at the end. So, in the process of the district ranger and even the forest supervisor staff reviewing the project, they will do a NEPA review. National Environmental Policy Act, Brad referenced it. Richard Nixon was the president when it was enacted back in, I think, 1969. Been around a long time. It's a mature statute. It's a procedural statute. You have to go through processes. And the first thing that needs to be understood is whether or not you will get a finding of no significant impact. A lot of times you do. Why do you get that? Well, because of the best judgment, professional judgment of the professionals that manage the forest, the impact is not significant. So what will you do then? Probably an environmental assessment level of review. That means you're going to go out and do certain studies. It's going to be published. You're going to have public meetings. You're going to have some scoping and input, and you're going to produce a document that may allow you to move your project forward. If, however, on the other hand, the finding is one of significant impact, you are going to find yourself then doing an environmental impact statement under NEPA. They have a reputation. They're kind of dreaded. I've actually done some, and in fact one that I have the record of decision frame hanging on my office wall, is a joint EIS between the BLM and the Forest Service, right out here on that map that was up there a little bit ago, where the boundary between the two agencies run right through the heart of the mining district. So, in any event, when you get to the EIS level, things get more complicated. What are the kinds of things you're going to have to look at? This is a laundry list. This is not exhaustive, but these are the types of things that typically come up when if you're a project proponent, you're trying to get it done. The Forest Service and other agencies will be meeting with you, working with you, and asking you to fund studies, right? You have to pony up some cash here, and that's serious money related to these areas. So, air quality resources, dispersion modeling for fugitive dust, impact of engines, just a whole myriad of things. Biological resources. Somebody earlier mentioned the Endangered Species Act, that's one, but also there's a number of sensitive species that are protected for various reasons, and they're just all kinds of habitat out there on the national forest that is very critical to supporting the wildlife population. So you'll be looking at that, studying it, doing censuses, identifying what these species are, and understanding what your impact might be. That's really what you want to know. And speaking of impacts, you may have impacts on cultural resources, historic and prehistoric, economic impacts to Mayor Wheeler's point. There are economic impacts to communities. They're generally positive, I think, in terms of dollars and cents. They need to be understood. Land uses. Somebody talked about competing land uses, I think, in the beginning in Ken's opening remarks. Just because you want to go do some mining there doesn't mean that somebody else might not want to run some cows there, or somebody else might want to recreate there. There's all these competing resources, competing opportunities that need to be sorted out, and basically where I think the need to land is highest and best use. Reclamation and closure is a big deal in the Gold Mine District. Really, big league reclamation projects. That's a technical term to take home with you, but they are several of them here that are just enormous and thousands of acres type of impact. And some of them have been morphed into community assets, such as the Old Dominion Park. What a cool place that is. Encourage you to go there if you haven't. Hazardous materials, waste, screen, characterization, that all needs to be done. Reclamation, closure, planning, soils and sediments, how do you protect them? What do you use to reclaim? How do you stockpile it? All of those things need to be planned for and understood. Visual resources, what does it look like at the end of the day? And then probably the most critical thing in the desert Southwest, water resources, both ground and surface. How do you protect it? You have to use some of it. How do you allocate use? These are very, very difficult questions. I don't know any of the answers, by the way, just the questions. And then finally, wildlife and habitat. I kind of touched on that earlier. Permits and approvals, you're going to need a bunch of them. It's going to take you years and some millions of dollars to get through this process if it's of some magnitude. You'll have to have your plan of operations approved. Sometimes the district ranger can do that with a decision letter if it's a small scale little thing that needs to get done. But if it's at the EIS level, you will have to get one of those things hanging on my office wall, which is a ROD, a record of decision, signed by the forest supervisor, in the case I was referencing, also by the state director of BLM. Air quality permit under the Clean Air Act, aquifer protection permit, that's a very big deal and a very rigorous exercise to get it. Clean Water Act Section 404 permit, in all likelihood you'll need one or more of those, possibly a dam safety permit, and then for the potential to discharge stormwater, a national pollution discharge elimination system permit. That is a mouthful, but what it is What it is a permit that specifies what you may or may not discharge in terms of quality and oil and that sort of thing. So, why do we do it here? Well, it's pretty obvious. That's where God put the copper. High-tech world, we use it in abundance. We're going to use it in electric cars. We're going to use it in our computer and electronic technology, all of these fancy things we patch around. We're going to use it. So, the fact that it's been here 140 years, I don't think is necessarily a barometer of where we're going to go. In other words, I don't think that's necessarily the end. Copper has been one of those metals that seems to go through a resurrection every few years and become something critical to